She wasn't supposed to cry, not in uniform, not on duty, not over something like this. And yet the tears came anyway, silent and unstoppable, tracing warm lines down a face trained to stay composed under pressure, as a small trembling shape pressed against her boots like it had chosen her long before she ever noticed it. But that moment hadn't started there. It started 2 hours earlier, under a dim flickering streetlight on the edge of a quiet downtown block, where Officer Emily Carter walked. Alone after a 12-hour shift, her shoulders heavy, her breath visible in the cool night air, the city humming low and distant like it was tired too, her boots tapping steady against the pavement, every step measured, controlled, predictable, the way she liked it, until something small broke the rhythm, a soft patter behind her, uneven, persistent. She didn't turn at first, just slowed slightly, listening. The sound followed. Closer now, a faint whine threading through the quiet, and when she finally glanced over her shoulder, she saw him, a German shepherd puppy, no more than a few months old, his fur a mix of dusty black and tan, too thin for comfort, ears not fully standing yet, one tipped forward like it couldn't decide whether to trust the world, his amber eyes fixed on her with a kind of urgency that didn't match his size. Emily exhaled slowly and turned forward again, shaking her head. Not tonight, she muttered under her breath, her voice low. Tired, she kept walking, expecting the sound to fade, expecting him to lose interest the way strays usually did. But the soft footsteps came again, closer this time. A little faster, she stopped abruptly and turned. The puppy nearly bumped into her leg, skidding slightly on the damp pavement before steadying himself. He didn't bark, didn't beg, just stood there looking up at her, breathing quick but quiet, as if waiting for permission she hadn't given. Emily crouched slightly, hands on her knees, studying him. You lost, huh? She said, her tone neutral, practiced, the kind she used on civilians who needed help but didn't want to admit it. The puppy tilted his head just a fraction, then glanced back over his shoulder, then back at her. A quick motion, deliberate, Emily noticed, her eyes narrowing just a touch. Go home, she added, softer now, waving her hand in a gentle shooing motion. The puppy didn't move. Instead, he stepped closer and nudged her boot with his nose. Not playful, not curious. Something else, something more intentional. Emily straightened, a flicker of irritation crossing her face. She had seen this before. Strays that learned to follow people for food, for warmth, for anything. But this felt different, and she didn't like different. Not anymore. Not after everything. She turned again and resumed walking, faster this time, her stride longer, more determined, the streetlight behind her buzzing faintly as she passed out of its glow. But the sound came again, those small, uneven steps keeping pace, refusing to fade. She stopped harder this time, spinning around. Hey, she said, sharper now, and the puppy froze mid-step, ears twitching, eyes locked on hers. There was no fear there, just that same quiet urgency, like a message he couldn't quite deliver. Emily sighed, running a hand through her hair, the memory flickering at the edge of her mind before she could stop it. Another dog, older, stronger, trained, a partner she had trusted more than most people. She pushed it down quickly, her jaw tightening. I'm not doing this, she whispered, more to herself than to him. But the puppy moved again, stepping closer, then turning his body slightly, looking back down the street, then back at her, repeating the motion, a silent signal. Again and again, Emily watched, her breath slowing, something shifting behind her eyes. This wasn't random. This wasn't hunger. This was direction. The puppy took a few steps away, then stopped and looked back, waiting, the space between them stretching thin with tension. Emily hesitated, just for a second, then took one step forward, and the puppy's ears lifted, his body tensing with a fragile kind of hope, like everything depended on what she did next. Emily does not speak again, not right away, because something about the way the puppy waits unsettles her in a way she cannot explain, and she has learned over the years that instinct matters, even the quiet kind. So she takes another step forward, slow, cautious, her boots scraping lightly against the pavement as she closes the distance, and the puppy responds immediately, turning and trotting ahead a few feet before stopping again, glancing back to make sure she is still there, his small body outlined under the dim glow of another streetlight further down the block, his shadow stretching long and thin across the cracked sidewalk, the city around them thinning out with every step. Fewer cars, fewer voices, just the distant hum of traffic somewhere far off and the occasional flicker of neon from a closed storefront. Emily exhales through her nose, her hands resting near her belt out of habit, not tension, just readiness. Always readiness. All right, she murmurs quietly, almost testing the words. I am following you. And the puppy moves again, a little faster now, as if he understands. As if those words matter, as if they change something. They pass a row of darkened shops, metal gates pulled down tight, graffiti faded along the brick walls, and turn into a narrower side street where the air feels different, heavier, carrying the faint scent of damp cardboard and something older, something forgotten. Emily slows slightly, her eyes scanning the space, noting the broken light fixture above, the puddle gathering near a clogged drain, the sound of wind slipping between buildings like a low whisper. The puppy does not hesitate. He keeps moving, weaving around debris with surprising certainty for something so small, then stopping again, always looking back, his ears twitching at every sound, but his focus never leaving her for long. Emily feels it now, that pull, subtle but steady, like she is being led somewhere she did not plan to go, somewhere she might not have chosen on her own, and it brings with it a memory she does not want, the flash of another night, another partner, another set of eyes that used to look at her with that same unwavering trust. She swallows hard and pushes it down, focusing on the present, on the sound of her own breathing, on the small shape ahead of her. Easy, she whispers, though she is not sure if she is speaking to him or to herself. They reach the end of the narrow street where it opens into a wider, abandoned lot behind an old warehouse, the kind of place people forget exists, the ground uneven with patches of gravel and broken asphalt, a rusted chain link fence leaning slightly along one side, and the wind stronger here, carrying a low hollow sound as it moves through the gaps in the structure. The puppy slows, his pace shifting from urgent to careful, his head lowering slightly, as if he is approaching something important, something fragile. Emily feels her chest tighten without knowing why, her steps becoming quieter, more deliberate, the distance between them shrinking until she is only a few feet behind him. And then he stops completely, not turning this time, just standing still, his small body tense, his ears angled forward, his gaze fixed on a shadowed corner near a stack of old wooden pallets and collapsed boxes. Emily follows his line of sight, her eyes adjusting to the dim light, shapes slowly taking form out of the darkness. Something there, something still, something that does not belong to the empty quiet of this place. She takes one more step, then another, her breath catching just slightly as the outline becomes clearer, not yet fully understood but enough to change the air between them, enough to make the silence feel heavier, and behind her, the distant city continues on, unaware, while here, in this forgotten space, something waits, and the puppy does not move, because this is as far as he can go alone. Emily does not rush forward, even though something inside her urges her to close the distance, because training has taught her that stillness often reveals more than movement. So she pauses just behind the puppy, her eyes narrowing as she studies the shadowed corner more carefully, the shapes slowly separating from the darkness into something real, something fragile. And then she hears it, not a bark, not even a whimper, but a faint, uneven sound, like breath struggling to hold on, barely there, almost lost beneath the wind. Emily's chest tightens, her posture shifting instantly, no longer uncertain, no longer hesitant, but focused, grounded. She steps forward, slow and deliberate, her boots crunching softly over loose gravel as she approaches the stack of worn pallets and collapsed boxes. The smell reaches her first, not sharp, not alarming, just the quiet scent of damp wood and dust, and something living that has been left too long without care. The puppy moves at her side now, no longer leading, just staying close, his small body brushing against her leg as if he has done all he could and is now waiting for her to take over. Emily lowers herself slightly, one knee bending as she leans closer, her eyes adjusting further to the dimness. And then she sees her, a German shepherd, full grown, her coat once strong and thick, but now dulled by dirt and time. Her body curled protectively around a space that looks empty at first glance, her sides rising and falling in shallow, uneven breaths. Her eyes half open, unfocused but still aware, still present. Emily exhales slowly, a quiet breath she did not realize she was holding. "Hey," she whispers, her voice softer now, stripped of authority, just human, just careful. The mother dog does not move much, just a slight shift of her head, a flicker of recognition or maybe just instinct, and the puppy steps forward immediately, pressing himself against her side, letting out a small sound, a gentle cry that carries more meaning than volume. Emily watches closely, her heart pulling in a way she cannot fully explain. The space the mother had been protecting is not empty, not at all. Tucked close beneath her front leg is a small cluster of movement, tiny shapes barely visible, their breathing soft and uneven, too small to understand anything except warmth and closeness. Emily's hand hovers for a moment before she reaches out, slow, careful, giving the mother time to react. But there is no resistance, no fear, only a quiet acceptance, as if she has been waiting for someone, as if she has already chosen to trust. Emily's fingers brush lightly against the edge of the worn cardboard beneath them, steady, controlled, her voice barely above a whisper. "You held on this long," she murmurs, more to the mother than to herself. "You did not give up." The wind moves through the lot again, carrying a low hollow sound that echoes off the metal siding of the warehouse. But here, in this small corner, everything feels still, contained, like time has slowed just enough to allow something fragile to exist. Emily shifts slightly, reaching for the radio clipped to her shoulder, her thumb pressing the button with a quiet click. "Dispatch, this is Officer Carter," she says, her voice calm, but different now, softer at the edges. "I have a situation that needs animal support. Possible emergency care required." She pauses, glancing down at the mother, at the puppy pressed close, at the tiny shapes beneath her protection. Location is behind the old warehouse on 3rd and Halston. She releases the button and lowers her hand, the radio crackling faintly with a response she barely hears, because her focus is here. In this moment, the puppy shifts again, nudging her hand gently, as if reminding her of something, and Emily looks down at him, really looks this time, at the dirt in his fur, the exhaustion in his small frame, the determination that carried him through empty streets to find her. And something inside her softens, something she had kept locked away for a long time. She reaches out and rests her hand lightly against his back, her touch steady, grounding. "You did good," she whispers, the words simple, but they carry weight, because she knows what it means to trust like that, to lead someone back to something that matters. And as the distant sound of a vehicle approaches, faint but growing, Emily stays right where she is, one hand near the mother, the other resting on the small back of the one who refused to give up, holding the space together until help arrives. The sound of the approaching vehicle grows louder, tires rolling slowly over uneven pavement somewhere beyond the lot. But Emily does not move, not yet, because something in the mother's breathing shifts, subtle but enough to catch her attention, a slight pause between each inhale, as if every breath has to be chosen, earned, and Emily leans in closer, her voice lowering even more, steady and calm. "Stay with me," she murmurs. Not as a command, but as a promise, the kind she has not made in a long time, her hand hovering just above the dog's shoulder before resting gently against her fur. Careful not to startle, careful not to take more than what is given. The puppy presses closer to both of them now, his small body wedged between Emily's knee and his mother's side, his warmth a fragile bridge holding everything together. The tiny shapes beneath the mother shift slightly, soft movements barely visible, and Emily feels something tighten deep in her chest, something that is not fear, not urgency, but something older, something that remembers what it means to protect, to stay, to not walk away. The wind quiets for a moment as if the world itself is holding its breath, and in that stillness, the mother's eyes open just a fraction more, not fully, but enough to find Emily, to hold her gaze in a way that feels deliberate, aware, and Emily freezes, because she recognizes that look, not from this place, not from this night, but from somewhere else entirely, a different time, a different partner, A different set of eyes that once trusted her the same way. She swallows hard, her throat tightening as the memory pushes closer, the sound of boots on gravel, a command given, a moment too late. She closes her eyes briefly, just a second, then opens them again, grounding herself in the present, in the weight of the dog beneath her hand, in the small, steady pressure of the puppy leaning against her leg. "I am here," she says quietly, the words simple but carrying more than she intends. The distant vehicle comes into view now, headlights sweeping across the lot in slow arcs, casting long shadows that stretch and shift across the broken ground. A white van with a faded logo pulls up near the entrance, engine idling low, and two figures step out, their movements quick but measured, practiced in situations like this. One of them calls out, "Officer?" And Emily lifts her hand slightly in acknowledgement without looking away from the mother. "Over here," she replies, her voice calm, controlled, the kind that reassures even when things are uncertain. The responders approach, their boots crunching softly as they take in the scene. One of them kneels opposite Emily, setting down a bag with quiet precision. "You did good calling this in," he says gently, but Emily only nods, her focus still anchored to the dog in front of her. The man reaches out slowly, checking the mother's breathing, his touch professional but careful, respectful. "She is still with us," he adds after a moment, and something inside Emily loosens just enough to let her breathe a little deeper. The second responder moves to prepare a small blanket, unfolding it with steady hands, the fabric catching the dim light as it spreads out across the ground. The puppy shifts again, watching every movement, his eyes alert but not fearful, as if he understands that help has arrived, as if his part in this is almost complete. Emily glances down at him, really seeing him again, the dirt in his fur, the quiet strength that carried him here, and she gently slides her hand along his back, a silent reassurance. "We have got them now," she whispers, though her voice carries a softness she cannot hide. The responders begin to work, carefully, slowly, lifting the mother just enough to slide the blanket beneath her, supporting her weight without causing distress. The tiny shapes beneath her are gathered with equal care, their small movements guided into safety, and Emily stays close, her presence steady, her hand never fully leaving the mother's side, not because she has to, but because she chooses to, because something in this moment has already changed her. And as the night air moves gently through the open lot, carrying away the sharp edges of the world beyond, Emily realizes that sometimes the call does not come through a radio, sometimes it arrives quietly, on four small paws, and refuses to leave until it is answered. The blanket settles beneath the mother with careful hands, and for a brief moment everything seems to pause, as if the night itself is watching, waiting to see what happens next. Emily shifts slightly to give the responders space, but she does not step away, her presence anchored beside them, steady and quiet. The man kneeling across from her glances up and meets her eyes, a silent understanding passing between them. Then he nods once. "We are going to lift her on 3, he says softly, more to keep the rhythm than to give instruction. 1, 2, 3, and together they raise her just enough, slow and controlled, the fabric supporting her weight as if it carries more than just a body. The puppy lets out a small sound at the movement, stepping forward instinctively, but Emily's hand rests gently against his side, grounding him. "It is okay," she whispers, her voice low, steady, and he stills, trusting, always trusting. The tiny shapes are gathered carefully, one by one, wrapped gently, and placed close to their mother, never separated for long, never left alone. The second responder adjusts the blanket edges, securing them just enough to keep everything in place. "We need to move now," he says quietly, and Emily nods, rising slowly to her feet, her joints stiff from kneeling but her focus sharp, present. The path back to the van feels longer than before, each step deliberate as they carry the fragile bundle across the uneven ground. The wind picks up again, brushing against their backs, tugging lightly at the edges of the blanket. But no one rushes, no one breaks the rhythm, because moments like this do not allow for haste, only care, only intention. When they reach the open doors of the van, the interior light spills out, warm and steady, cutting through the dimness of the lot, creating a small space of safety within the night. The responders lift the mother inside, setting her down on a prepared surface, soft. Padding beneath her, the puppies placed carefully beside her, their small movements continuing, quiet but alive. Emily stands just outside for a moment, watching, her breath slow, measured, as if she is making sure the moment is real, as if she needs to see it fully before she can believe it. The puppy remains at her side, looking up at her now instead of ahead, his purpose shifting, no longer leading, no longer searching, just staying. The man inside the van looks toward Emily again. "We can take them from here," he says, his tone gentle, appreciative, but Emily does not answer right away, her eyes still on the mother, on the rise and fall of her chest, on the small cluster pressed close to her warmth, and then she steps forward, one foot onto the van's edge, her hand reaching out one last time to rest lightly against the mother's shoulder. The fur beneath her fingers warmer now, or maybe it is just her perception changing. "You are not alone anymore," she murmurs, the words barely audible, but carrying weight all the same. She withdraws her hand slowly, not pulling away, just letting go, the kind of release that comes with trust. The responders close the doors halfway, leaving enough space for air, for light, for movement. The engine hums softly as it idles. Ready, Emily steps back onto the gravel, her boots finding their place again on solid ground. And for a moment she simply stands there, the quiet settling around her like a blanket of its own. The puppy nudges her leg again, lighter this time, not urgent, not desperate, just present, and Emily looks down at him. Really looks, her expression softer now, the edges of her guard lowered in a way she has not allowed in a long time. "You did not give up," she says quietly, almost to herself, but the puppy's ears lift slightly as if he understands, as if the words matter. The van door closes fully with a soft click, sealing the fragile hope inside. And as the vehicle begins to roll forward, slow and steady, Emily watches it go, her eyes following until the red glow of the tail lights fades into the distance, leaving behind only the quiet lot, the wind, and the small life that refused to walk away. And in that stillness, Emily realizes that something has shifted inside her, something subtle but undeniable, like a door she had kept closed has opened just enough to let something back in, something she thought she had lost. And she exhales slowly, the night air cool against her skin, as she lowers her hand once more to rest against the puppy's back, no longer as reassurance, but as connection. The red glow of the tail lights disappears completely, swallowed by the distant street beyond the warehouse, and the quiet that follows feels deeper than before, as if the world has exhaled and left Emily standing alone with the echo of what just happened. She remains still for a moment, her eyes fixed on the empty space where the van had been, her breathing slow, controlled, but not as guarded as it once was. The puppy shifts beside her, pressing lightly against her leg again, not asking, not urging, just staying, and that simple presence draws her back, pulls her out of the distance her thoughts were beginning to drift toward. She looks down at him, really looks, and for the first time she notices the small details she missed before. The faint tremble in his legs from exhaustion, the way his fur is matted in places, where rain and dust have settled together, the quiet steadiness in his gaze that does not match his size. And Emily exhales softly, kneeling down again so she is level with him, her movements slower now, more deliberate, less guarded. "You should not be out here alone," she says quietly, her voice no longer carrying the edge it had earlier. The puppy tilts his head slightly, ears twitching as if listening not just to her words, but to something deeper, something unspoken. Emily reaches out, hesitating only for a fraction of a second before letting her hand rest fully against his back, her fingers moving gently through his fur, feeling the warmth beneath the surface, grounding herself in something real, something present. "You did not just find me," she murmurs, her voice almost lost in the wind. "You came looking." The words hang there for a moment, and she realizes she believes them, not as a thought, but as a truth she can feel, the kind that does not need explanation. The puppy leans into her touch just slightly, not demanding more, just accepting what is given, and that quiet acceptance stirs something inside her she has kept buried for a long time. A memory surfaces, not sharp, not painful, but heavy, a field under a pale sky, boots sinking into soft earth, a partner at her side who never hesitated, never questioned, who moved with her, trusted her, followed her into places that did not promise return. She blinks, pulling herself back before the memory can fully take shape, her hand still resting on the small back beneath her palm. I lost one before, she says softly, the words slipping out without intention, without defense. The puppy's ears lift slightly, his gaze steady, as if he understands the weight behind them even if he cannot know the details. Emily lets out a quiet breath, her shoulders easing in a way they have not in years. I told myself I would not do it again, she adds, almost to herself, and for a moment she considers standing, walking away, returning to the path she had been on before this night changed direction, but her hand does not move. Her body does not follow that thought. Instead she stays, grounded by the small life in front of her. The wind moves gently through the lot, softer now, carrying away the sharp edges of the night, leaving something calmer behind, something that feels almost like a beginning instead of an ending. Emily shifts her position slightly, sitting back on her heels, her hand still resting against the puppy. You are not going back out there, she says after a moment, her tone quiet but certain. The kind of certainty that does not come from obligation, but from choice. The puppy does not move away, does not question. He simply stays where he is, as if he has already made that decision long before she spoke it. Emily glances once more toward the empty street, then back at him, her expression softening further, the lines of tension easing from her face. Come on, she says gently, rising to her feet and brushing her hands lightly against her pants. You are coming with me. The words feel simple, but they carry weight. They shift something in the air between them. The puppy takes a step forward immediately, falling into place beside her without hesitation, without doubt. And as they begin to walk back toward the street, away from the abandoned lot, and toward the quiet glow of the city beyond, Emily feels the difference in her own steps. The rhythm no longer empty, no longer just routine, but accompanied now, grounded, and for the first time in a long while, she does not mind the sound of another set of footsteps beside her, because this time, she knows exactly why they are there. The city feels different on the walk back, quieter in a way that is not empty but settled, like it has already seen what it needed to see for the night, and Emily moves through it with a slower pace than before, her boots no longer striking the pavement with the same rigid rhythm, the puppy keeping close beside her, matching her stride as best as his small legs allow, occasionally brushing against her ankle as if checking that she is still there, that she has not changed her mind, and each time he does, Emily glances down, just briefly, a habit forming without her noticing. They pass under a row of streetlights that cast soft pools of yellow across the sidewalk, and in each one the puppy's shadow stretches and shrinks, following him like a quiet echo. Emily notices the way he carries himself now, no longer urgent, no longer searching, just present, and something about that steadiness settles into her as well. They reach her patrol car parked along the curb, the metal cool under the night air, and Emily pauses for a moment before opening the door, her hand resting on the handle as she looks down at him. Really considers the next step, the responsibility, the unknown, all the things she once used to weigh carefully before making any decision. But tonight feels different. Tonight has already answered something she did not know she was asking. She opens the back door slowly, stepping aside. Up, she says gently, not as an order, but as an invitation. The puppy hesitates for only a second before placing his front paws on the seat, scrambling slightly before pulling himself up, his small body settling onto the fabric with a quiet rustle. He turns once, then sits, looking at her with that same steady gaze, and Emily nods faintly, closing the door with care. She moves around to the driver's side, sliding into the seat, the familiar scent of the car grounding her, the radio silent now, the dashboard lights casting a soft glow across her hands. She sits there for a moment without starting the engine, just listening, the faint sound of the puppy shifting in the back, the distant hum of the city beyond, her own breathing, steady but different, less guarded, more present. She reaches up and adjusts the rearview mirror slightly, and there he is, small, quiet, watching her, not demanding anything, not expecting, just there, and for a brief second, the reflection shifts in her mind, overlapping with something older, a larger form, a trained posture, eyes that once held the same unwavering trust. She blinks, the image fading back into the present, into the small figure in her back seat. And instead of pulling away from the memory, she lets it sit, just for a moment, not as pain, but as something that once mattered and still does in a different way. "You are safe now," she says softly. The words meant for him, but echoing somewhere deeper. She starts the engine, the low rumble filling the quiet space, and eases the car back onto the street. The movement smooth, unhurried, the city lights sliding past the windows as they drive. Emily does not turn on the radio, does not reach for anything to fill the silence. She lets it stay, lets the quiet hold them both. They pass familiar streets, familiar corners, places she has driven through countless times without noticing. But tonight, each one feels slightly altered, as if the lens she sees through has shifted just enough to reveal something new. The puppy lies down after a few minutes, curling slightly into the seat, his breathing evening out, the exhaustion finally catching up with him now that the urgency has passed. Emily glances back once more at a red light, watching the rise and fall of his small chest, and something inside her softens again, deeper this time, not just a crack in the wall she built, but a space opening, making room for something she had closed off. She turns onto a quieter road, leading toward the precinct, then hesitates, her hand resting lightly on the wheel as she considers the building ahead, the procedures, the paperwork, the separation that would follow. She exhales slowly, her grip shifting, and without fully thinking it through, she takes a different turn, away from the bright lights, toward a smaller street lined with quiet houses and dim porch lights, the kind of place where the world slows down, where things are not processed and filed away, but simply held. And as the car continues forward, steady and calm, Emily realizes that this night was never just about answering a call. It was about something finding its way back to her, something she thought was gone. And in the soft glow of the dashboard, with the quiet weight of a small life resting behind her, she does not question it anymore. She just drives. The car slows as it turns onto a narrow residential street where the glow of porch lights replaces the harsh glare of city neon, and Emily eases her foot off the accelerator, letting the vehicle roll gently, as if even the engine understands the need for quiet now. The houses here are modest, spaced just enough to feel private, their windows dim, curtains drawn, the world inside them already at rest. And Emily pulls to a stop in front of a small single-story home with a weathered mailbox and a porch light that hums faintly against the night. She turns off the engine and for a moment does not move, her hands resting loosely on the steering wheel, her eyes drifting to the rearview mirror where the puppy lies curled, his breathing deep and steady now, completely surrendered to sleep. And something about that trust, that complete release, settles into her chest with a weight that is not heavy but grounding. She exhales slowly and reaches back to open the door, careful not to startle him. But the soft click of the latch is enough, his ears twitching as his eyes blink open, adjusting to the dim light. He lifts his head slightly, looking at her, not confused, not alarmed, just aware. "We are here," she says quietly, though the words feel unfamiliar on her tongue, as if she has not said them to anyone in a long time. The puppy stretches clumsily, his small body still stiff from the long night, then carefully climbs down from the seat, landing softly on the pavement beside her. He pauses there, looking up at the house, then back at her, waiting, always waiting. Emily closes the car door gently and steps toward the porch, her boots softer now against the wooden steps, each one creaking faintly under her weight. The puppy follows without hesitation, staying close to her side, his presence no longer a question but a quiet certainty. She reaches the door and pauses again, her hand hovering over the knob, not because she is unsure of the action, but because she understands what it means. This is not a temporary solution, not a passing moment. This is a choice that extends beyond the night, beyond the call, beyond the duty she has always defined herself by. And for a brief second, the old instinct surfaces, the one that measures risk, that calculates outcome, that prepares for loss. But it fades quickly, replaced by something simpler, something clearer. She turns the knob and steps inside. The house is quiet, the air still carrying the faint scent of coffee from hours earlier. A lamp left on in the corner casts a soft, amber glow across the room, illuminating familiar shapes, a couch, a small table, a shelf with a few photographs she does not often look at. The puppy steps in behind her, pausing just inside the doorway as if taking in the space, his nose twitching slightly as he absorbs the new environment. The warmth, the stillness, the absence of wind and uncertainty. Emily closes the door behind them, the soft click echoing gently, sealing the night outside. And for a moment they both stand there, just inside the threshold, as if acknowledging the shift that has taken place. Emily moves first, setting her keys down on the table with a quiet clink, then turning back toward him, her posture relaxed in a way it has not been in years. "Come on," she says softly, stepping further into the room. The puppy follows, his steps cautious but curious, his small body moving from one patch of light to another, exploring but never straying too far from her. Emily kneels down near the center of the room, her hand resting lightly on the floor as she watches him, really watches, and the puppy approaches slowly, closing the space between them until he is right there again. Within reach, within trust, she lifts her hand and places it gently against his side, her fingers moving through his fur with quiet care. And this time there is no hesitation, no guarded edge, just presence, just connection. The house remains silent around them, but it does not feel empty. It feels full in a way that is subtle but undeniable, as if something long absent has returned without announcement. Emily sits back slightly, her shoulders easing as she lets the moment settle, the weight of the night, the choice, the shift, all finding their place without needing to be named. And as the puppy lowers himself onto the floor beside her, resting close, his breathing steady once more, Emily leans back against the couch, her eyes closing just for a moment, not in exhaustion, but in quiet acceptance. And in that stillness, she realizes that sometimes healing does not arrive as something you seek. Sometimes it follows you, step by step, until you finally turn around and let it stay. Morning arrives quietly, not with noise or urgency, but with a soft wash of pale sunlight filtering through the curtains, touching the edges of the room where Emily sits half awake against the couch, her posture still, her breathing slow, and even as if the night never fully left her. The weight of it settled gently instead of fading away. The puppy stirs first, a small shift beside her, his paws stretching forward, his back arching slightly as he wakes into a world that no longer feels uncertain. His eyes blink open, adjusting to the light. And for a moment he simply looks around, taking in the unfamiliar space, the quiet, the absence of wind and cold. And then his gaze finds her, steady, calm, the way it always has. Emily notices the movement and opens her eyes fully, not startled, not confused, just aware, her hand instinctively lowering to rest against his back, as if confirming he is still there. And he leans into it, just slightly, enough to bridge the space between sleep and presence. "Hey," she murmurs, her voice softer than it has ever been, not carrying authority, not carrying weight, just warmth, the kind that does not need to prove itself. She shifts slowly, sitting up straighter, the room coming into clearer focus around her, the familiar shapes of her home no longer feeling distant or untouched, but part of something that has changed, something that now includes him. She glances toward the small table where her phone rests, the screen dark but waiting. And for a moment she considers the next step, the follow-up, the call she knows she should make. Her fingers reach for it, pausing just before contact. Then she picks it up and dials, the sound of the line connecting soft and brief before a voice answers. On the other end, calm, professional, she listens more than she speaks. Her response is quiet, measured. "Yes, I understand. Thank you," she says finally, her voice steady but carrying something deeper beneath it. She lowers the phone slowly, her gaze drifting back to the puppy, who has not moved far, who has not wandered, who simply waits. And Emily exhales, a breath that feels like release more than relief. "They are going to make it," she says softly, the words filling the room in a way that feels almost sacred. The puppy's ears lift slightly, his head tilting just a fraction as if he recognizes the meaning even without the language. Emily lets the silence settle again, but it is not the same silence as before. It is fuller now, warmer, carrying something that feels like grace. She stands slowly, her movements unhurried, crossing the room to the shelf where a single photograph rests slightly turned away from view. She hesitates for a moment, then reaches out and adjusts it, bringing it forward into the light. The image simple. A younger version of herself, a uniform still new, a dog at her side, strong, focused, eyes bright with purpose. She studies it for a long second, her expression softening, not with sadness, but with something closer to acceptance, something that allows memory to exist without closing her off from what comes next. She turns back, her gaze finding the small life now standing in the center of her room, looking at her as if nothing else matters, and she smiles, just slightly. The kind of smile that does not demand attention but changes everything nonetheless. "You need a name," she says quietly, stepping closer, kneeling once more so she is at his level, her hand reaching out, resting gently against his chest, feeling the steady rhythm beneath her palm. "How about Scout?" she adds after a moment, the words settling into the space between them as if it belongs there, as if it always has. The puppy's tail gives a small movement, not wild, not excited, just enough to acknowledge the sound, to accept it, and Emily nods faintly, as if something has been decided without needing confirmation. She sits back slightly, her hand still resting against him, her eyes steady, calm, and in that quiet room, with sunlight stretching across the floor and a small life pressed close to her side, Emily understands something she has not allowed herself to believe for a long time, that not all endings are losses, that sometimes what is taken leaves space for something unexpected to return, and that even the smallest act of following, of not giving up, can lead two lives back to where they were meant to be. And she does not say it out loud. She does not need to, because the meaning is already there, in the stillness, in the presence, in the quiet bond that no longer needs to be explained.